Hi, and welcome to Ask Cam on welfare benefits. I'm Rosie Avis. I'm the Partnership and Communication Lead at Citizens Advice Manchester, and I am joined by the lovely Lindsay, who is one of our welfare benefits specialist advisors, here to talk today about all things welfare benefits. We've got some things that we'll chat about, and we'll have a general kind of try to cover a lot of the things that you might want to know about. But if you do have any questions for Lindsay, please do feel free to post them in the comments section, and that will come directly through to us. And we would love to sort of try and answer your questions as much as possible. So let's talk welfare benefits, Lindsay. Now it's a really broad starter question, but in terms of welfare benefits, what is out there that's available to people? Probably let's start then, I guess, for people who've maybe found themselves out of work, particularly recently because of the pandemic, but obviously people find themselves out of work every day. So what is out there to support people?
Thanks, Rosie. Yeah, so if people are new to the benefit system and they've got a low income, the main benefit they're going to be looking at is universal credit. So that's a means tested benefit. So that has to be claimed with a partner. So if you live with a partner, you have to make a joint claim, and it takes into account the income and the savings of you and your partner. Okay. And then people sometimes forget there's also contribution-based benefits.
Okay.
So if you're out of work, either because you're looking for a new job or because you are sick, then if you've worked for the past couple of years, you can claim contribution-based either job seekers allowance or employment and support allowance if you're sick.
Okay.
And that benefit is claimed for you as an individual, and it's not means tested. So it does not take into account the income of your partner or any other income you have. So if you've lost your job and you've got a partner who's still working, you might not be entitled to universal credit, but you might be entitled to claim that contribution-based benefit.
Okay. That sounds nice, and I think that's probably the most straightforward way that you can describe. And we know what is quite a complex system, essentially. So if people have made a claim for a benefit, I know this sort of often comes in more with health-related benefits, but can come in with other benefits as well. If they've had a decision back about their entitlement that they don't agree with, what sort of steps can they take if they feel that actually they should be entitled to something?
Yeah. So any decision should be in writing, and any decision you can dispute. So whether it be that you're on universal credit and you have to look for work and they don't think you've done enough, you could get what's called a sanction. Okay. That's an appealable decision. If you're on universal credit because you're sick and you're not fit to work, you have a medical assessment. If you fail the medical, that's an appealable decision. There's another category of benefits which are not means tested and not contribution based. Disability benefits. If you've got mobility problems or you've got additional daily living needs, like if you struggle with cooking, washing, dressing, the main one is personal independence payments, or PIP.
Right. Okay.
And again, if you apply for PIP and you're refused, or you get an award you're not happy with, that's an appealable decision. So if you get any decision in writing, just get in touch with us at Citizens Advice. We'll book you an appointment with one of our specialists, and you'll get allocated a caseworker. You'll get our direct phone numbers, and we can help you from start to finish. Wow. So from getting the original decision letter, usually you have to ask for a reconsideration first. Yeah. Then if they don't change their mind, you can appeal to an independent tribunal. sounds a lot more complex than it is, but trust me, it's not. And that's why we're there to help you, because so many people don't appeal when they should do, just because they're so daunted by the system or overwhelmed or stressed. And, you know, we can help you, like I said, from the first decision all the way through to the tribunal outcome. And we can help you all the way with that, with any decision. Just get in touch with us.
That's great. Wonderful. And I've just popped our advice line number on the bottom there, and also our website address. And if you visit, if you sort of don't want to give us a call, you'd rather contact us in a different way, you can use web chat. You can use Facebook Messenger if you're watching us on Facebook right now. You can also book yourself in for a video advice appointment as well, to chat to someone. So do feel free to sort of have a look into all of those different ways to contact us, because we know that the phone doesn't work for everybody, but that doesn't mean that you can't get advice. And it's great to see that there are some new people tuning in and watching and liking the live feed. So that's great. Thank you for joining us, folks. And just a reminder that if you do have any questions at all, please do drop them in the comments box, and we'd be happy to try and answer them. So we've talked a little bit, Lindsay, about universal credit already, and we have touched upon, I guess, sort of changes to the benefit system that sort of come in. Obviously, universal credit in itself was a change in the benefit system a number of years ago. But universal credit is changing at the end of September, is that right?
Yeah. So universal credit is, let's say, a new benefit, but it's been around 5 years now. So if you're on any of the old benefits that universal credit is replacing, then just get in touch with us. If you have a change in circumstances and you're already on benefits, so you're not new to the benefit system, get in touch with us, please, before you make the claim. So many people make a claim for universal credit and not realizing that the old benefits will stop. And some people are actually worse off on universal credit. But once you've made that claim, it's often too late. So please get in touch with us. You know, we're not as scary. You know, we're here to help. Just ring us. Even if we say, yes, it's the right thing to do, you know, it's always better asking before rather than afterwards. Yeah. So anyone who is already on universal credit, there's actually being paid about £86 a month. That was a temporary increase of £86 a month for the kindness of the government's heart. And they gave a temporary increase of £86. It was meant to end in April. And we did a lot of campaigning and we got them to extend that for a further 6 months. But that's just pushed back the problem. So it's now due to end at the end of September. So anybody who is on universal credit, be prepared. Your benefits are going to have a significant drop in October, about £80 a month, if they don't extend the temporary increase again. We're campaigning again, hoping that they extend it again, and fingers crossed they will. But in April, they literally left it up to the last hour. So, and we can't predict. So we're hoping they keep that £80 increase, but just try and be prepared as much as you can when you're on benefits. You know, it's hard to budget, you know, it's hard to save, but maybe don't take on any new big commitments or anything, because that is going to drop in October.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, we are campaigning really hard because we do believe that actually the rate that universal credit is paid at now is the rate that should be continue to be paid at permanently. We believe that actually that it's essentially is a lifeline for people that really is really necessary. And so we will be, if you are interested in that campaign, if you're watching, we will be campaigning sort of and putting information out across our social media platforms, across our website, about the campaign. We'll be hopefully engaging with local politicians to try and influence them, although we know last time they were very supportive of the campaign, so we're pretty confident they will be again. And just sort of essentially highlighting the need and the sort of the impact that makes. And if you would like to contribute to that campaign in any way, if you, for example, if you're on universal credit and you know you'd like to share your story about what it might mean if you lose that income, we'd be absolutely delighted to hear from you, because we know that it's really important to tell stories of real life experiences, and not just sort of hit data and figures. So we'll sort of continue the campaign and watch this space. There will be more coming in the next few weeks or so. Something else that I know sort of sits around universal credit that I don't really understand very clearly, but I know that you're going to explain it really well for us. The minimum income floor with universal credit, what is it? Who does it affect? And what's happening with that?
Yeah. So the universal credit is particularly harsh for self-employed people. And that's a massive cohort of people who've ended up on universal credit in the past year, who've maybe never been part of the benefit system before, probably through no fault of their own. The business has been forcefully closed, or they've had a significant drop in customers due to COVID. So people who are on universal credit who are self-employed have to report their income each month. So you have to go on. So it's a massive change to the tax system where it's all annually.
Yeah.
You have to report it each month. Now there's this little thing in universal credit called, and it's just on universal credit, called the minimum income floor. So what that is if you are on universal credit and you've no reason why you can't work full time, so you're not got young children, you're not a carer, you're not sick, then they assume you earn minimum wage at full time hours. So they assume you earn that. So even if you don't, even if you only earn £50 a week after all your outgoings and expenses of your business, they assume that you earn that. So that is what they treat you as earning and base your universal credit award on, even if you don't get that. So that has been switched off. During COVID, they haven't been applying the minimum income floor. But that's due to end in about August. It's not going to be a sudden cliff edge, so you don't need to worry. It's going to be down to your work coach at the job centre who you liaise with. So the work coaches at the job centre have so much discretion. So as much as it might be frustrating, talking to them and engaging with them, it's the last thing you want to do. It really sometimes can be in your interest just to, explain your situation, explain what's going on. And, most of the time we hear good feedback, good stories from the work coach, and they're pretty reasonable. But if you don't tell them, then they can only go off the information they've got. So explain the situation, and it's still down to their discretion when that minimum income floor kicks back in for you. And there can be exceptions if you're starting up a new business, for example, things like that. But if you're new to universal credit over the past year and you're self-employed, you won't have had to deal with this yet. Yeah. So it could be, a bit of a shock to you, especially if you was on like tax credits before. It didn't apply to tax credits. They paid you based on what you actually earned. So it is a massive change in the system for self-employed people. Just be really, really careful.
Yeah, so it's one to watch out for. And as you say, if you sort of preparing for it to happen in advance, it's always could be really valuable to get in touch with us just to kind of find out a little bit more about what maybe you could do instead. So how you might be able to manage your finances, or if you're going to struggle to keep up with any payments or sort of regular bills that you have as a result of potentially sort of a change in your income. It's always best to get in touch with us early on rather than waiting for that to kick in and for the problems to arise. So please do get in touch, speak to our advisors. As Lindsay says, we're all very, very, well, I say we, I'm not an advisor, but the team are all very, very friendly. And absolutely, all of our advice is free, confidential, impartial and independent. So we're not here to judge you. We're not going to share any of your information with the DWP. We're not going to tell anybody that we've spoken to you. We're here to work in your interests to get you the best possible support. So please do get in touch and or ping us a question in the comments box and we'll see if we can answer it for you. So
I got called an angel today, so you know.
Oh, well, you are an angel, Lindsay. I'm not surprised.
I mean, in fact, that client who I spoke to today, we couldn't actually do anything. There was no merit in her appeal. The decision was correct.
Yeah.
But she just felt so much more relieved and reassured. And she was just happy just to have someone to take the time to listen, to explain. And she understood the decision. And she just felt more knowledgeable, more prepared for the future and how changes will affect her benefits in the future. So even though we couldn't actually help her in the way she contacted us for initially to appeal the decision, because actually that decision was correct in them circumstances, you know, she still was really glad that, you know, she felt empowered and happy she got in touch anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, I think that's so often we know that the welfare benefit system can be incredibly confusing and that trying to navigate it on your own when in a lot of circumstances people are vulnerable for one reason or another and it can be really overwhelming and that actually, as you say, it doesn't matter. It's not always about the fact that we're able to fix something or get more money or to increase an award. It's sometimes just about being able to explain what the process is, what that the thought pattern was, and then we will always look at your circumstances as well and understand, are there other places that is there maybe something else that you could have claimed that you haven't yet, or is it that we can help you with your energy bills to help you save money there in order to kind of make up for the shortfall you've got in your benefits. So I think it's really important, as you say, to kind of always get in touch, ask the question. There is no question too small or too, you might feel it's a silly question, but it's not. We absolutely are here to answer everything.
I had a client yesterday who I looked at his award letter for ESA, and he's missing out on a premium. So it's £67 a week that he should be getting that he's not.
Right.
So I told him what to do: ring ESA and say, I'm missing out on this premium. And he wrote it all down. He's got dyslexia, he wrote it all down. He rang them and he rang me back today and he said, he told them word for word what I told him to do. And they've told him he's not entitled to it. They've told him he can't get it. And that they're simply the wrong.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as much as you would hope that you can rely on the advice from the DWP call centre, unfortunately, that's a prime example of, unfortunately, you can't always. And luckily, he's got in touch with us and I can tell him that the advice the DWP gave him is wrong. I assured him that he is entitled to that £67 a week extra and he's going to ring back again tomorrow. There's no easy solution. Yeah. And this time he's going to ask again and he's going to escalate it to a manager and ask for a call back from the manager and ask them actually what guidance, what guidance have they looked at to say he's not entitled to that, and hopefully it'll be rectified. Failing that, we're going to have to send an official complaint in writing, which is fine, but that's not the quickest way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
But luckily he has got in touch with us, but it always makes me frustrated about all the people who don't get in touch and who will rely, quite rightly so. Why would they doubt what the DWP is telling them? And they rely on that, and they go away and they accept it.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
It is, as you say, I think often, DWP are making decisions with sometimes the information that they have, or their interpretation of the information that they have. It's not, it's not to say, they're evil and they're deliberately punishing people. It's just they make mistakes. We're all human. We all do it. But like you say, when somebody then receives that decision, they will often sort of take it as read, because they think, it's been handed down by an official body. And, unfortunately, often a lot of those decisions are right, but a lot of them may be wrong. And unless they are challenged, then you can't correct it. So if something about a decision doesn't feel right, I think it's always worth calling us and having a chat, isn't it? So that we can take a look at those decisions and like you say, in that circumstance, be quite clear that it was the wrong decision, and that we can keep fighting to get that turned over.
And like we were saying earlier, if you get a decision you don't agree with, you ask for a reconsideration first, then you get the outcome to the reconsideration, which quite often they still don't change their mind. Sometimes it's a bit of just an administrative hurdle. Yeah. And a lot of people will give up at that stage. But if you carry on to appeal, the success rate for disability benefit appeals is 70%.
Wow.
So it's really, really high. So if all them people didn't appeal and they just give up at the reconsideration stage, because I understand why people give up. It's stressful, it's worrying. You think, well, I've asked them to reconsider and they've still not changed their mind. They're not going to change their mind again, but they do. The tribunal are independent. You get a chance to submit further evidence. We can help you gather not just further evidence, but relevant further evidence. Yeah. If you've got a medical appeal, often your GP will write you a supportive letter. Yeah. But sometimes, GPs don't always understand the benefit system and rules. And they'll put a lot of information in that letter, which is not actually relevant to the benefit or the criteria for the benefit. And so you send that to the tribunal and it doesn't necessarily change their decision because it doesn't give them any relevant evidence. But we can help ask the right questions to the GP and get the relevant, helpful information. So it's all them kind of things. And so many people come to us after they've tried to appeal a decision themselves. Yeah. And they've been to tribunal and they've lost. And then they get in touch with us. And often there's not much, we can do. There's a couple of routes, but often there's not much. And if people had just got in touch with us at the start, we could have been a lot more helpful and got relevant evidence. And then the outcome could have been a lot different. Yeah.
So again, it's that thing of get in touch with us early, ask the questions. Don't be afraid to just ask a quick question. It might be a very simple answer, or it might just mean that we investigate a little bit further and sort of understand what it is that we can do to help. But the earlier you come to us, the more able we are to help is, I guess, the most important thing. Sorry, were you going to?
No, I was just going to say another thing people don't realise as well is if you've got some kind of existing award, say again for PIP, the disability benefit, and you appeal, then the outcome can be anything. So they can, as well as increase it, they can keep it the same, but they can actually take it all off you. And you can end up worse off by appealing. And a lot of people come to us again after they've appealed and been to the tribunal and had everything taken off them. And if they had just come to us at the start, we could have warned them that that was a possibility. And we could have weighed up with them whether it was worth taking that risk and look at the merits of the appeal. So if you've got an existing award, even more reason to get in touch with us early on.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's, as you say, it's really important that people just don't realise that option for them to reduce the award just because you're appealing, thinking, oh, it's going to go up. Or like, I think it's natural that people would think, oh, it's going to either go up or it's going to stay the same. But actually, they don't realise that there is that option for it to be reduced. So you do have to be careful about taking those steps on your own without coming to us for advice. To move off sort of appeals and sort of challenging decisions sort of for a bit, something that we talked about is the EU settlement scheme, and sort of obviously it is now closed, but could you sort of talk a bit about sort of what that means, and if people have missed a deadline, what they can possibly do, and I guess sort of just, is there anything else that people might need to know with regards to that?
So obviously since Brexit, since we left the EU, any EU nationals that were in the UK before the end of last year have to apply to the EU settlement scheme, and you'll either get pre-settled status if you've not been here 5 years, or settled status if you've been here 5 years. As long as you've applied and you've got one of them things, you can still carry on getting benefits as long as you meet the criteria and things. If you haven't applied to the EU settlement scheme, technically you are now subject to immigration control and are going to have problems with benefits. There's been massive campaigns trying to make sure that everybody knows to apply to the EU settlement scheme. But there'll always be people who slip through the net, slip through the gaps.
Yeah.
There probably won't be people who are watching this today, because they're more likely to be, people in more remote settings, more elderly people with less access to the internet, a lot of the Roma communities, things like that, who have not actually made the application. But perhaps anyone who's watching might have, a family member or a neighbour or a friend who is an EU national and doesn't really use the internet and things much. And, it's worth just checking with them, just making sure they're aware, because we don't want the first time they to become aware is when all the benefits stop. So the government have said they will be lenient with late applications to the EU settlement scheme. If you've got a good reason why it's late, you can still make the application. In the meantime, they are going to be lenient again with benefits carrying on, even if you've not applied to the EU settlement scheme. So you're all right for now, but only for another couple of weeks, months.
Yeah.
So just spread the news again, and just make sure everyone has applied. Yeah. And if that affects you, again, get in touch with it. It's not too late. The worst thing you can do is, bury your head in the sand and think you've missed the deadline, panic, and just not deal with it. Yeah. It's not too late. Just get in touch with us. There's still options available.
Absolutely. So I guess in terms of what we're seeing at the moment, is it sort of the same type of things that we usually see, or are there new types of cases coming through to us on the basis that obviously coronavirus seems to have just changed everybody's world completely?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of me as a benefits specialist, so I deal with mainly appeals, honestly, it's gone a little bit more quieter over the past year because there's been less decisions being made. A lot of benefit awards have been extended where they would normally get a new decision. A lot of people who claim benefits because they are sick, normally they should have a medical within 3 months to decide if you're actually fit for work or not. Right. There's been huge delays with them. So if anyone watching is on a sickness benefit and you're waiting for your medical and it's been over a year, that's pretty normal at the minute. But there's still things we can do to get in touch with us. But usually, we have them decisions about the medical outcome every week. But because they've just not been making them, because for a long time, they stopped the face-to-face medicals and they weren't doing decisions on the telephone. They didn't think it was, a good enough facility to make decisions on people's capability for work over the phone. So them decisions haven't been rolling through. Also, we touched on earlier about sanctions.
Yeah.
So again, if you're on benefits, you're on whatever benefit you're on, it's for a reason, and you have to do certain things to get that benefit.
Yeah.
So if you don't do that, you can get a sanction for hundreds of different things. You can get a sanction. And again, they've been lenient with them over the past year. So again, we haven't seen many sanction decisions, but them things are going to all start trickling through again. It's mainly been people asking, what am I entitled to?
Yeah.
And I think I read something the other day about 50% of people who are actually entitled to universal credit in the past year haven't even claimed it.
Right.
And that's for lots of different reasons, whether it be, like we said earlier, the stigma of claiming benefits, not knowing what you're entitled to, not having access to the internet, mental health problems, illiteracy, being homeless, not having the relevant ID. So many reasons why people wouldn't claim what they're entitled to. But yeah, the main things have been, what can I get? I'm on benefits and I've got worse. Should I tell them? Am I entitled to more? But other than that, appeals-wise, it's dropped off because there's not been as many decisions being made.
Yeah, fair enough. And I guess that when you talk about going back to that sort of thing about people not claiming what they're entitled to, I guess the thing with the universal credit, it's probably important to point out, is that it's sort of, if you haven't lost your job entirely, so we know that a lot of people through the pandemic would have completely lost work, but actually that for some people maybe just had their hours reduced, so their company maybe sort of said, actually we only need you part-time rather than full-time. That if you are in work, you can claim universal credit as well. Isn't that the case? So
yeah, of course.
So I think if people don't realise that actually you don't have to be out of work to claim benefits, the idea of the benefit system is to
top up.
Yeah, absolutely. To keep you at sort of essentially what you need to live on. So if your salary isn't going to do that, then actually there's support available. So if you are struggling at all and you're sort of finding it hard to kind of make payments on your bills every month, if you're sort of falling onto your credit card a bit more often than you should be, and you're not being able to clear it, those kinds of things, then I think it's well worth getting in touch with our team. So what a number of our advisors will do is do what we call sort of an income maximization check, and they will check first and foremost what benefits you might be entitled to, so an entitlement check, but they're also then talking about where are those sort of, what is your budget, and are you potentially spending money on, like, for example, we know that energy bills are, people often overspend on their energy bills just because they don't realise they could get a better deal elsewhere. So actually it's not about telling you what you should and shouldn't spend your money on, but actually it's about saying, is there like somewhere in your bills that you might actually be overpaying something you don't need, or like you're somewhere where you could get a better deal, and helping to sort of go through finances in that supportive way. It's not just about like it's not always just about benefits. It's not always just about like going for debt and things like that. So again, please do contact us. Please do get in touch if you do have any queries really about the benefit system. Lindsay, I think we've said it's such a huge topic, welfare benefits. I think to try and cover everything is really complicated. But if there was sort of one thing that you wanted people to know about the benefit system, what would it be?
I think the main thing I would always say is, don't assume anything. There is so much misinformation, false assumptions about the benefit system. We've all probably had neighbours or friends who we've spoke to who sound like benefits specialists and they know what they're doing. I'm sure we've all spoke to a neighbour who you pick up little bits of information and you think that's correct. My friend told me you can't get benefits if you've got $5,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
Because they've heard that from somewhere. That's wrong. I know someone who gets benefits when they've got this health problem, but you can't get it with this health problem. Everyone's situation is different. And we can never say, because a lot of people will say, how much can I earn and still be entitled to benefits? Yeah. We can't answer that on a blanket answer because it depends on everyone's individual circumstances.
Yeah.
So the government set every year an amount they say you need as a basic to live on. So depends on the setup. So if you've got money for you, any partner, any children, any rent, if you've got health problems, if your children have got health problems, if you're a carer. So all them things get added together to make up your reward. And sometimes it's actually quite surprising how much you can actually earn and still get a top up of benefits. Like Rosie said, you could be in quite a good job, and if you've got rent and a couple of children or even not, it's quite surprising sometimes how much benefits you can actually get in addition to your wage to top you up to that level that you need. And, there's so many extra things what we can refer you to or direct you to, trust funds, grant applications, discretionary pots of money, advance payments. So not only when you first claim universal credit can you get an advance, and then you have to pay it back via deductions over the next 2 years from your universal credit.
Yeah.
If you've got a change of circumstances, which means that next month, because universal credit is paid monthly, that next month you're going to get more universal credit, you can actually ask for a budget in advance. Yeah. So you can actually ask for, rather than wait until next month when you'll get more, but in the meantime, you need more money, you can actually ask for an advance of that. So there's lots of things. And, if you've got a shortfall on your rent, if you're on universal credit or housing benefit, and you've got a shortfall on your rent, then even the council, your local council, have a pot of money called a discretionary housing payment that you can ask for a little bit out of it to help you with your shortfall, depending on what your reason is. So that's all discretionary. So there's so much out there. But the main thing I'd say is don't assume, never rely on advice from, unreliable sources or unknowledgeable or not professional sources, because there's so much misbeliefs about benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good advice. Essentially, the advice is to get advice. Don't.
We're not on commission, so if no one rings me all day, I suppose we want, genuinely everyone at Citizens Advice want to help people. Yeah. We want to, like that gentleman I spoke to yesterday, I've helped him, but I'm not just happy I've helped him. I'm just worried about all the other people who've relied on that advice from the DWP and not got in touch with us. Yeah. So, we're a charity. We're not on commission. We don't get paid any more or any less, depending on how many people contact us. Yeah. So we encourage you to contact us because, we want to help you. We want to set the record straight.
No, I think that's really great. Thank you, Lindsay. I really appreciate that. I'm going to pop up our contact details on the bottom of the screen there again, because I think, as I say, it's really important for anybody who wants to contact us. There are you can either give us a call or you can visit our website to find out. There's a number of online ways to get in touch with us if the phone is not your thing. That's totally fine. But really, essentially, yeah, the sort of end message is just ask. Like, please do get in touch with us. Please do kind of, if you just want to know, if you're curious, could you possibly get any additional support? Please just give us a call and find out. We're more than happy to take you through that process and to sort of help you if you are able to make a claim for something else, to help you navigate that process, because we know that it can be quite confusing, to say the least, for a lot of people. So if something doesn't, and if something doesn't feel right about a claim or an award that you've already put in or already got, give us a call before trying to take action on your own, just so that we can make you aware of the best possible choice for you, really. But thank you so much for your time, Lindsay. It's been really wonderful. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in, and we'll be back probably in. We've got a comment before. So someone just saying thank you and great information. That's really wonderful. I'm really pleased that you found it useful. And yeah, it's been absolutely great. And we'll probably be back in a couple of weeks with something new. If you've got any ideas about what you would like to see a future live stream on, please do put something in the comments. Even if this video isn't still live, we will pick up those comments. We'd love to make sure these videos are suited to what you want to know from us. So we'll keep doing these live streams and hopefully get the message out there for all the advice that is available. But I hope you all have lovely evenings, despite the lovely Manchester weather out there. And we'll see you soon. Good night.
Thanks, Rosie. Bye, everyone.